ahead, stay inspired. Follow us on all our social media platforms. The moon sat low in the sky, half hidden behind thin clouds. Its light made the old streets of Cape Coast shine faintly, like a secret being told softly. The air smelled of salt from the sea, and you could hear the waves hitting the shore gently in the distance. It was the kind of take a moment to share, subscribe, and like night that felt like something was hiding, but you couldn't tell what exactly it was. Kissi wasn't someone who got scared easily, but tonight it felt really strange. It was like the night itself was waiting for something to happen. As Kissi got closer to the empty market square, he heard a soft sound, quiet crying, barely louder. He stopped to listen. His curiosity and concern kept growing. He followed the sound, looking around carefully, until he saw someone. It was a young woman sitting on the ground and crying, her shoulders shaking with every sob. The girl shook at the sound of his voice and slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen and red from too much crying, and tears kept running down her cheeks. Her lips were shaking like she wanted to say something, but no word came out. Kissi stood there for a moment, watching her carefully. Then he took a step closer. "Don't worry," he said in a soft voice. "I just want to help you. You are safe," Kissi said. I am sorry," the girl said with a shaky voice. "I didn't mean to bother anyone," she added. "You are not bothering anyone," he said gently but firmly, crouching down to her level. "What's wrong? Why are you sitting here all by yourself?" The girl wrapped her arms tightly around her knees and hesitated before saying, "My name is Beatrice." In a small voice she spoke, but the voice was a weak one. "I don't have anyone. I'm all alone," she added. Kissi's face changed, his worry showing clearly on his face. "Why? Oh, what happened?" Take a moment to share, subscribe, and like. Beatrice took a deep breath, but her hands were shaking. "I used to live with my aunt, but she didn't treat me well. She made me do all the housework. And my uncle?" She stopped, her voice breaking as fresh tears came down. Kissi felt his chest tighten as he watched her struggle to talk. "Oh, it's okay, Kissi said softly. "Take your time, I am here. I will listen." After a little while, Beatrice managed to speak again, her words broken up by sobs. "My uncle was wicked to me. I couldn't stay there anymore, so I had to run away. But now I don't know where to go or what to do." Kissi's heart grew heavy as he listened. He moved closer and put his hand gently on her shoulder. "Don't worry, Beatrice. You are not alone anymore. We will figure this out together. You can come with me. I will figure something out for you." Beatrice hesitated. Her tears-filled eyes locked on his face. She seemed unsure, but though trying to decide if she could trust him. After a long pause, she asked, "Are you sure? I don't want to cause any problem for you." Kissi smiled gently and extended his hands. "Oh, come on, let's go. We will take it a step at a time." Beatrice glanced at him as they walked. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Kissi looked at her briefly. With his face calm, he said, "Sometimes it's not about knowing someone. It's about doing the right thing." The walk back to Kissi's small home wasn't far, but every step felt heavy with unspoken thoughts. Kissi could tell Beatrice wasn't sure about him. She was walking slowly and her eyes kept moving around, like she wasn't sure if she could trust him. He looked at her and spoke softly. "You've been very quiet." Beatrice gave a small shrug and said in a low voice, "I don't know what to say or what will happen next." "You don't have to talk if you don't feel like it," Kissi said gently. "Just know that you are safe now. Nobody will harm you here." Beatrice looked at him carefully, with her eyes studying his face. After a moment, she gave a small nod. "Thank you. Thank you for helping me. You didn't have to. Kissi gave her a small smile. Sometimes, it's just right to help. All of us need somebody someday. When they reached his modest home, Kissi unlocked the door and pushed it open. He stepped aside and gestured for Beatrice to enter. It's not much, but it's a place to rest," Kissi said. The room was simple. It has just one bed, a small wooden table with a chair, and a corner that served as a kitchen. There was a clay pot of water on the stand and a few tools scattered on the floor, a reminder of Kissi's trade. It's nice, Beatrice said softly, stepping aside. Kissi gave a short laugh as he closed the door behind them. "Nice might be a stretch, but it's a home." She turned to him with a hesitant voice. "Are you sure it's okay for me to live here? I don't want to inconvenience you." "Oh, it's not an inconvenience," Kissi said firmly, walking all over to clear some tools off the chair. "You can rest here tonight. Tomorrow, we will figure out what to do next." Beatrice sat down slowly, with her hands still shaking. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said softly. "You don't need to thank me," Kissi replied, as he placed a cup of water in front of her. "Just drink this and try to relax. You've been through a lot tonight." Beatrice took the cup. Her fingers brushed lightly against Kissi's fingers too. She looked down. With a quiet voice, she said, "You are kind, and I'm not used to people being kind to me." Kissi gave her a small smile. "I know you might be hungry." He stood up. "I have some gari. Today was rough for me at work, So let's manage this. And hopefully, tomorrow, it will be better. When Kissi returned with the gari, Beatrice smiled faintly. It's better than nothing, she said. Let's manage it. But Kissi shook his head as he poured some milk into the soaked gari. This is for you, he said firmly. Beatrice looked at him. Her brows furrowed. What about you? What milk will you use to drink your own? Kissi laughed lightly. I'm a man. I will eat it just like that, and I will be fine. Beatrice frowned, shaking her head. Oh, no. I don't like that idea. Please, let's eat it together. You can't eat it plain like that, please. Kissi hesitated for a moment, but her persistence softened him. They both sat down and shared the soaked gari, drinking it together. The small meal didn't seem much, but for that moment, it brought them a little warmth in an otherwise cold night. I have never known people to be this kind, Beatrice admitted as her voice was low. Kissi gave her a small, reassuring smile. Well, maybe you've just been around the wrong people. Not everyone is like your aunt and uncle. There are still good people in this world. As time passed, Kissi and Beatrice grew close. Their bond strengthened with each shared story, struggle, and dream. Beatrice, once quiet and withdrawn, began to open up, and her intelligence and curiosity shone through their conversations. Kissi quickly saw her potential. You should go back to school, Kissi told her one evening as they sat outside his home. Beatrice looked at him and laughed. School? Which school? Please, I don't even work, and you are also struggling to make ends meet. How am I supposed to go to school? Kissi smiled and leaned forward. Well, it's not university. I know I don't have that kind of money to sponsor you. But there's this company I heard about. They train ladies in different skills. Skills like hairdressing, sewing, and catering. We can go there, and you can decide which one you want to do. Then you can start. Beatrice raised her eyebrow, surprised. Are you serious? Yes, Kissi said firmly. You've been here for months now, and thankfully, you've accepted my love. This is one way we can start building a future together. I can't be a mechanic all my life. I need support, and I know you can help me. Together, we will make it. Kissi's words touched Beatrice deeply. She looked down for a moment, with her heart full. She realized she had truly found someone who accepted her just as she was. Okay, Beatrice said with a small smile. Then we will go and check it out. We will find out how the admission works, and I will start. If only you can afford it too. Mr. Kissi, oh, you are a darling. Kissi laughed. Oh, don't worry, my dear. I have saved a little money. It's not enough, but it should be enough to start. The rest, we will manage it as we go. Mr. Kissi, Beatrice said, shaking her head with a playful smile. Thank you for thinking about me like this. I really appreciate it. Kissi leaned back and looked at the sky. He said, Beatrice, life hasn't been easy for me, but when I found you, I felt like I had a purpose. That's why I want us to build something solid, a future we can be both proud of. Beatrice reached out and touched his hand gently. Kissi, you don't know what you've done for me. I never thought I'd meet someone who would see my worth, especially when I didn't see it myself. Thank you for believing in me. Kissi smiled and squeezed her hand. We will take it a step at a time, Beatrice. Don't worry. Tomorrow, we will go and check the training center. Just promise me one thing. Kissi, what is it? Beatrice asked, tilting her head. Promise me you won't give up. Kissi said softly, no matter how hard it gets, we will face it together. Beatrice smiled. Her heart feeling lighter, she said, I promise, Mr. Kissi, with you by my side, I won't give up, Middle. Supporting Beatrice's education wasn't easy. Kissi worked long hours under a difficult boss at a local garage, earning just enough to get by. But determined to give Beatrice a chance, he began making sacrifices. He sold his old radio, his bicycle, and even some tools he needed for work. When those weren't enough, he borrowed money from acquaintances, ignoring their side comments and judgmental looks. Kissi, one of his friends, said one evening at a small drinking spot, you didn't suffer yourself for nothing, oh. These modern girls, as soon as she dey finish school then money starts dey come. She will forget about you, mark my words. Kissi leaned back in his chair. His expression was calm and resolute. Charlie, I hear you. But this isn't about what she would do in the future. It's about what's right. If I have the chance to help her, why shouldn't I? Life is already hard enough. Another friend chipped in, shaking his head. You are too trusting. Women don't remember who helped them when they are successful. Kissi smiled faintly, taking a sip of his drink before responding. That's your experience, Masa, not mine. I trust her, and even if she forgets me, at least I will know I did the right thing. That's enough for me. Back at home, Beatrice noticed the changes, the missing items, the longer hours Kissi worked, and one evening, she confronted him. Kissi, what have you done? She asked, with her voice trembling. I see how hard you are working, and I know you saw things. Why are you doing all these for me? Kissi looked at her. His expression was steady. Because you deserve a chance, Beatrice. Someone gave me a chance once, and it changed my life. Now, it's my turn to do the same for you. Beatrice's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. Finally, she whispered, I'll make it worth it. I won't let your sacrifices go in vain, Kissi. After finishing her training, Beatrice quickly found a job with the help of a friend. It didn't take long for her career to take off. She worked hard, and her dedication and smart thinking earned her quick promotions. Soon, she became the star of the company, admired by everyone for her skills and work ethic. Kissi, though still working as a mechanic, remained hopeful about their future. The two of them planned to marry once they have saved enough money. Beatrice was a big
Take a moment to share, subscribe and like.
help in the house. She did her chores, supported Kissi with all the expenses, and reduced the burdens on him. One evening, as they sat together, Kissi smiled and said, "If you hadn't gone for this training, how would you be buying all these tools and equipments for me? My boss is even wondering where I get these things from." Beatrice laughed softly, but Kissi's words were serious. These moments reminded him that he had made the right choice by encouraging Beatrice to go for the training. Seeing how far she had come and the way she supported him gave him hope and confidence that their future together was bright. One evening, after days of searching, Kissi found the perfect plot of land just outside the village. It was spacious enough for a mechanic shop and affordable, a real opportunity to build something for himself. He could already picture it, his own shop and his future taking shape right before him. Filled with excitement, Kissi rushed home, eager to tell Beatrice the good news. They had both struggled for so long, and now there was finally a chance for a better life. He imagined how happy she would be. Things were finally looking up. But when Kissi got to her small house, everything had changed. The door creaked as he pushed it open, and straight away he felt something wasn't right. The house, which was usually full of warmth, was now quiet. Too quiet. The small glow from the fire in the corner couldn't take away the cold feeling in the room. His eyes moved around the room, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Beatrice's things, her clothes, her belongings, they were all gone. The room, which used to feel alive, now felt empty and strange. Panic rose in his chest. "Beatrice," he called, with a shaky voice, but no one answered. The silence was heavy, almost like it was mocking him. Quickly, he pulled out his phone and dialed her number. His hands were shaking as he waited, but all he heard was the automated voice, which said, "The number you have dialed is not reachable." He tried again, but it was the same thing. Hey, Beatrice was gone. Just like that. How? Days turned into weeks as Kissi desperately searched for Beatrice. He asked around the village, knocked on doors, and even went to the market where she used to shop. But no one had seen her. It was as if she had vanished without a trace. With each passing day, Kissi's hope began to fade. The excitement about the land he had found started to slip away too. Now, all he could think about was Beatrice. What had happened to her? Why had she left? Had something happened to her? Or had she just chosen to leave? And if so, why? The unanswered questions gnawed at him. No matter how much he tried to understand, nothing made sense. As time went on, The same friends who used to support Kissi now seemed to enjoy his pain. At first, their pitying looks were small and quiet, but later they started to say things openly, things that cut deep. "We told you this would happen, didn't we?" one of them said, with a mocking smile. The words hit Kissi like a slap. They never understood Beatrice or why he believed in her so much. They had always doubted their relationship, always thought he was wasting his time. Another friend, someone Kissi used to trust, added, "Ah, Kissi pa, you are too good for her. She didn't deserve you. She used you, and now see. Didn't we warn you?" The ridicule from his friends and neighbors felt unbearable. Their cruel words, their mocking glances, nearly broke him. He stayed away from work for weeks, unable to even look at his tools, which gathered dust in his small home. The words kept ringing in Kissi's head. The same village that used to feel like home now felt like a strange place full of people who didn't know him anymore. He wanted to defend Beatrice. He wanted to really speak up for her. But he didn't even know what to say, even if he tried. Every day, it felt like the truth was slipping further and further from his hands. His heart still ached for her. He couldn't believe she had left him like that, just like that, on purpose. There had to be a reason, something he wasn't seeing. But as the days went by, doubts began to creep in. He started questioning everything, his own decisions, his trust in people, and even his love for Beatrice. The pain of her leaving grew worse every single day. He thought about the life they had started to build together, the plans they had made. Was it all a dream? Had he just imagined it? Was she ever really there for him? But deep down, in a small corner of his heart, he refused to give up. He couldn't believe Beatrice had betrayed him. There had to be more to the story, something he didn't know yet. He was determined to find the truth. Still, as the days dragged on, holding on to that hope became harder and harder. But eventually, he found solace in his craft. The rhythm of working with his hands became a way to cope. Slowly, he began to rebuild his life, saving every pesewa he could. The scars of Beatrice's departure would never truly heal, but they no longer defined him. He focused on moving forward, piece by piece, day by day. Meanwhile, Beatrice's life had completely turned around. She had left her past behind, changed her number, and stepped into a new future. Now, she was a big HR boss, successful, confident, and living a life she never thought was possible. Her friend Joyce often reminded her of how far she had come. "Hey, now you see how peaceful your life is," Joyce said one evening as they relaxed in Beatrice's fancy apartment. "Everything here is yours. If you hadn't listened to me, by now you'd still be with that smelly, uneducated mechanic. Imagine going to big events and introducing him to people. What would you even call him? Your husband or a mechanic?" Beatrice laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that didn't feel real. Still, Joyce wasn't finished. My sister, focus on Bossman, our client's son. He is so crazy about you. And trust me, he will make a fine husband. Forget that mechanic. God has brought you to a better place for a reason. You are too good for that old life, Joyce said. The two women laughed, and for the first time in a long while, Beatrice allowed herself to imagine the perfect life she now had. One sunny afternoon, Joyce stopped by Beatrice's house unannounced, as she usually did. Beatrice was sitting on her couch, going through some office documents, when she heard the loud knock on her door. Before she could even get up, Joyce had already opened the door and stepped in. Hey, Madam HR. Busy, busy, busy. Always busy, Joyce teased, dropping her bag on the couch. Do you ever rest at all? Beatrice chuckled and shook her head. You know how this work is, Joyce. It's not easy running a whole department. Anyway, what brings you here today? Joyce clapped her hands together excitedly. Ah, I came to remind you of our 31st night service. My sister, this is the last Sunday of the year. We have to show up in style. Oh yeah? New year, new blessings. And please, we are changing the color this year. Oh. No more dull colors. Let's go bright. I mean, like something like gold, red, and white. This year, dear, we go scatter the place with our dressing. Beatrice laughed. You and your sense of fashion. Joyce. You know I'm not like you. But okay, alright, fine. I will see what I can do. I am not even sure what to wear. Oh, don't worry, Joyce said, waving her hand dismissively. I will come back tomorrow and help you pick something. This 31st night, we must shine. Let them know we are enjoying life. True to her word, Joyce came back the next day and together they picked their best Ghanaian outfits. Beatrice
Take a moment to share, subscribe, and like.
settled on a beautiful kente-inspired dress with gold accents, while Joyce chose a bold red and white lace dress. When the night for the service arrived, the two friends stepped into the church like queens. The atmosphere was electric. People were singing, dancing, and clapping their hands as the choir led the congregation in praises. The last Sunday night of the year was always a big celebration, and this year was no different. Beatrice, who had been buried in work for months, let loose for the first time in a long while. She joined in the singing and clapping, her voice blending with the joyful noise of the congregation. It was time for Pastor Obed to begin his sermon. The church grew quiet as he stepped up to the pulpit, his presence commanding attention. With a warm smile, he greeted the congregation. Praise the Lord, he exclaimed. Amen, oh, the people responded enthusiastically. The pastor's sermon started in an uplifting way, filling the church with joy. Beatrice sat up straight, feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit in the atmosphere. She could feel the warmth of the praise. Her heart was light from the dancing and singing earlier. But as Pastor Obed continued, the tone of his preaching shifted. and a change swept over the room. Many of you, he began, with a steady voice, have spent your time, money, and sweat, and everything you have sponsoring or sending or even opening businesses for friends, family, and loved ones. You've given with a pure heart, only to be betrayed. But I'm here to tell you, the new year is coming, and the Lord is saying this. Anyone who has been betrayed because of his sacrifices, kindness, or love, he will open new doors for you. The words hit Beatrice like a wave. Her heart began to race. She wasn't sure why, but something about the message made her feel uneasy. The pastor continued, reading a scripture from the Bible, but all Beatrice could think about was how his words seemed to speak directly to her. As the scripture rang out, her mood shifted. Her thoughts raced back to all the sacrifices she had made, the people she had trusted, and the betrayal she had faced. Her mind flashed to Kissi, the very man who had once been her rock. The pain of leaving him, of abandoning their shared dreams, suddenly flooded her. She had tried to convince herself that it was for the best, but now, sitting in the church, hearing the pastor's words, her heart grew weary and heavy. Her nights of joy, dancing, and laughter seemed distant now. The energy in the room felt different, and Beatrice could no longer escape the weight of her emotions. She looked around, seeing the happy faces of those who were hopeful for the next year, and felt a deep sadness creep in. The next morning, after returning from the 31st night service, Joyce decided to stay over at Beatrice's house. She had enjoyed the service but noticed that Beatrice seemed a little off. Her energy was different from the night before. Joyce stretched as she made her way to the living room, looking around. Where is this girl? Is she still sleeping? Madam, wake up, it's 10 a.m. Joyce muttered to herself. She quickly made her way to Beatrice's bedroom, knocking lightly before entering. Beatrice was sitting on her bed, dressed in a nightie, staring into the space. She didn't even hear Joyce enter. Joyce frowned. Hey, Beatrice, why are you sad? What's wrong? Beatrice slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She looked at Joyce with a heavy heart. She couldn't even lie. She had to speak the truth. I betrayed Kissi, Joyce, she said quietly. He gave me everything when even my own family ignored me. He loved me and I left him. Joyce's face twisted with surprise. She walked closer and sat beside Beatrice. What? You are still thinking about that mechanic? Beatrice, you are now a boss lady. What happened to Mr. Bossman? Is he that bad? Beatrice shook her head slowly, with tears streaming down her cheeks. You don't get it, Joyce. I lived with Kissi in the same room for years. I know him more than I know anyone. He was always there for me when no one cared. He never judged me. He believed in me. And now I am the one who's abandoned him. I can't lie to myself. I love him. Joyce raised an eyebrow, trying to keep her voice calm. But you have a good man. You have a good man in Mr. Bossman now. He can give you everything you want, Beatrice. Why do you keep looking back? Beatrice stood up, with sadness still in her eyes, but with a firm voice. She said, "No, Joyce. I can't risk someone like Kissi to Bossman. What if I marry him and then he changes? What if it's all just a phase? No, I can't live like that. I need to find Kissi. He's my everything. He's my world and my future." Joyce tried to reason with her, but Beatrice wasn't listening. As soon as the words left her mouth, Beatrice walked straight to her closet and began changing quickly, ignoring Joyce's protests. She grabbed her keys, threw on a jacket, and headed straight to the door. "Beatrice, wait!" Joyce called after her, but Beatrice was already in her car, starting the engine without looking back. Joyce stood in the doorway, her hands on her hips, shaking her head. "This girl is really something else," she muttered under her breath. Beatrice didn't care. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had made a mistake of. She had to find Kissi, even if it meant facing the truth about herself. She couldn't live with this regret. The love they shared was real, and she really needed him back in her life.
When Beatrice reached the shop, the familiar sounds of clanking tools and engines reviving filled her ears. The smell of oil and the busy atmosphere felt so familiar, just like before. It was like she was coming home. She took a deep breath and looked around. There he was. Kissi was working hard on the car, focused on what he was doing. As soon as the workers saw Beatrice, everything went quiet. It was like the whole shop stopped and all eyes were fixed on her. One worker whispered, "Ah, see as she dey show face today. Na Beatrice oh," another added. "Make her no talk too much. See how Kissi go react." Kissi looked up. His face was frozen in surprise when he saw her standing there. "Hey, Beatrice?" he asked, his voice full of confusion and disbelief. "Is this really you?" Beatrice couldn't speak at first. She didn't know what to say. She just dropped on her knees in the middle of the shop, her emotions pouring out, and tears started to fall. The room was completely quiet. The workers exchanged glances, unsure of what to do. Some shook their heads, whilst others whispered under their breaths. Beatrice finally managed to speak with a shaky voice. "Kissi, she paused to catch her breath. "I was wrong. I let pride and bad advice stay ahead. They inspired. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Separate me from the only man who ever truly loved me. I am so sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging you, please give me another chance." One of the workers who had been watching closely muttered, "Ah, this girl no go fit stop cry. See the way she dey beg." The shop was dead silent. Everyone was waiting and looking at Kissi to see what he would do. Kissi stood still, his face unreadable, torn between so many emotions. It actually felt like an eternity before he spoke. His voice was full of pain. "You broke me, Beatrice," he said, and his words sliced through the silence. "You made me lose faith in love." His eyes was full of sadness, and they met her. Beatrice felt the weight of his word deep in her heart. Another worker, sensing the tension, whispered to his colleague, "This na real wahala o. See as Kissi face dey change. E no be joke o, my brother." Beatrice swallowed hard. her voice barely above a sob. I know, she whispered, with tears falling freely, but I will spend the rest of my life showing you how sorry I am. Everything I have, my money, my home, my life, is all yours now. But most of all, my heart. My heart has always been yours. Always, Kissi. The shop fell into an easy silence. The workers couldn't believe their eyes. Some were speechless. Others looked at each other in disbelief. Kissi stared at her for a moment. His expression was tense, still holding on to the head from the path. Slowly, he reached out his hand, offering her a chance to stand. Beatrice, if we are doing this, he said softly and firmly. His voice was steady now. We are doing it together. No lies, no running away. Just us, Beatrice. Just us. Beatrice's heart soared. The relief, hope, and love flooded back in that moment. This was it. The moment she had been waiting for. A new beginning for both of them. The workers who had been quietly watching the entire scene broke into cheers and applause. Some clapped, others laughed, and a few shouted, "See, them they back together, oh, omo. This love no be small." One of the older workers with a wide grind said, "I no fit believe this. Kissi and Beatrice, na love, not be lie." Kissi smiled, a small but genuine smile, and Beatrice knew in that moment that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. Thank you for watching. Follow Derba Tales on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for updates and more amazing stories. See you next time.